Ronan and Alan Quinlan. Good morning, lads.
Morning. Morning, lads. How are you?
All good. How are you doing? Rare that we have you on together. This is a surprise and a delight.
Yeah, I texted Colm at 6:50 a.m. I bit of scatterbrain this week, Adrian, so I wasn't organised. So I hope I'm not jumping in on Quinny's gig.
Well, when Colm got in contact with him afterwards, he insisted that it wasn't going to happen, but eventually relented.
I won't get a word in edgeways.
There's plenty to get to. The Toulouse this weekend, Ronan, to begin with, maybe is probably the best place to kick things off, and then Cast, I think, in the semi if you get there. The Lyon game, obviously, last weekend was exactly what you needed, I suppose, to continue this. Does it almost feel, I know we've chatted a little bit last year and this year about sort of cup final week after week. Are you still kind of in that mode now?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's hopefully there's 3 games left. The Lyon game was a little bit different, I suppose, in the fact that the only way we wouldn't qualify if they scored a bonus offensive, a try-winning bonus. So in France, the way it works is you score 3 more tries than the opposition. So it's not 4 tries. So you have to outscore your opposition by 3 tries. So 7-4, 5-2, 3-0, you get the 5 points. So we couldn't let Lyon do that because we were 4 points ahead of them in the table. So a 5-0, they would have gone ahead of us. So at the latter stages of the game, it was comfortable. We were good, but at halftime it was 3 tries to 1 to them. We probably had a grounds for a legitimate try disallowed just before halftime off a driving maul. But going in at halftime, 3-1, it was not panic, but a little bit of, okay, this can fall apart if we're not careful. But we responded really well in the first 12 minutes of the second half. And the end game then, I don't know, people probably saw a little bit of on Twitter, was hectic. The Lyon probably have 2 try scoring opportunities, and most unfortunate circumstances for them. They didn't get over the line, but a bonus point would have done, a defeat would have done for us as well.
Yeah, the gods are with you for sure. There hasn't been hangover, it seems anyway, from the Heineken Cup finals. It feels as if it's almost giving you a bit of a wind in the sails.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, it was. The turnaround was Saturday, Sunday, so that extra day playing Sunday night made a big difference. I think it meant that we could really probably enjoy the aftermath of Marseille, so that was good. I think we had 4 days of partying, which I think is very important, that you do that and you celebrate a big moment as it was. But then the latter part of the week, we parked it and we moved on, and Lyon were good. Obviously winning the Challenge Cup, but I think talking to their guys and management afterwards, it wasn't really, I suppose, celebrated or appreciated maybe as much as they would have liked. So they were on for the game, and they had obviously good grounds to go for a bonus point win against us. But our 23 were good on the night.
4 days of partying.
Well, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, yeah, but it wasn't like mayhem. It was just, I suppose, sitting down and having a lazy lunch and a good dinner, a barbecue. I think that's why we do it.
I'm wondering what's behind that grin. There's a bit more than that. I presume a few glasses of red. And
it comes compared to Munster standards, it was tame. It was very tame. But you're trying to. It's not all about the field. I think that's where you make the difference is in connecting off the pitch and enjoying people's company. And it's a very different club rugby in France, I think, to what you may perceive, but it's starting to get really, really enjoyable now.
There seems to be a bit of a sense over here, Ronan, right, that like if the Heineken Cup final was played again next weekend, that Leinster would come out on top, rightly or wrongly. And I wanted to put, Matt Williams was on with us during the week, and his comments probably summed it up better than most. He said, I got to disagree with everyone. La Rochelle were absolutely rubbish until the 64th minute. I don't think it was a great plan, as in La Rochelle's plan. I think Leinster stuffed up. And I wanted to put them to you, not in any kind of an incendiary way, other than you were on the line, and we were going to talk to Quinny about them anyway. And now, seeing as you're here, we might as well get your reaction to it. What's your view on that idea, almost, if I could interpret it as to say that if it was to be played again, people are feeling that maybe Leinster will come out on top?
Yeah, there's definitely good grounds for that. You know, they're such a quality team. That we were very aware that we had one shot, and that's why cup finals are, and that's why you have to get the mindset right, that it's 80 minutes. You know, I think these things aren't like the basketball where they're played over a 7-game series and you win 4-3. You know, this is 80 minutes, and it's the exact same as winning a World Cup final. You don't have to be the best team for 4 years. You got to be the best team for 80 minutes in a quarterfinal, 80 minutes in a semi-final, 80 minutes in a final, and that's how top level sport is decided. And I think it is a different mindset. I think you know, it's interesting listening to that La Rochelle were rubbish, is it?
Yeah.
I think that's
until the 64th minute.
Incredibly inaccurate, but you know, I suppose that's how Matt gets on the radio. I suppose that's what, or on TV. That's, he has to be controversial, and that's his opinion, you know. But I would contest that and wouldn't agree with that. I think we were inaccurate some times in, as I said, I think afterwards to you guys, that, you know, I mean, I think we did leave some scores out there, but the difference between not executing under immense pressure with a really good defence as opposed to being rubbish, their poles apart. So, you know, I think it's a little bit of trash talk, but that's okay. That's what people are entitled to do.
Ultimately, the winning of a game in a cup final proves that it was a great plan anyway, right? Like, I mean, I know you can't plan for every single eventuality in a game. You've just mentioned about what happened, obviously, at the Leon game at the weekend. Nobody plans for that stuff, but ultimately...
So what, it was a rubbish plan as well, is it? I didn't hear
I don't think it was a great plan, to be fair to him. It wasn't as...
Yeah, but if you score 3 tries, it must be better than the opposition's plan. But I think we've given that enough airtime in terms of, you know, I think maybe if it was Scott Robertson, we could have a debate about
it. What's your sense, Quinny, of the, as he's grinning, what's your sense there of after Heineken Cup final response from Leinster? Like, they themselves didn't show much hangover, obviously, against Glasgow. They're headed into a game this weekend. It feels to me like there's no, from a Leinster point of view, putting that right. Like, the URC ain't going to put that right over the next few weeks, no matter what happens. It's about getting back to a final, isn't it? And proving that they, in Matt's words, that they don't stuff up, or that they can get over the line.
Yeah, I think if they obviously win the URC, then they get over the loss of that final. If I say I agree with Matt, he'll fall out with me. But anyway, I don't entirely agree with Matt at all. I don't think Matt meant it in the way maybe that it's hard for Rog to hear the words rubbish. I think he highlighted a few things, and obviously I'll probably put this to Rog about the discipline. And it was probably one of the things that's, for me in commentary, some of the penalties that La Rochelle gave away, I thought they were silly penalties and they made it difficult for themselves. But I thought what they did really well. To say a performance and a plan isn't right, I thought the plan that La Rochelle had, and it was a very obvious one because we spoke about it, Adrian, and it's no secret. The key to stopping Leinster's flow, because they're so accurate and so good with the ball and their cohesion and timing a pass and all that, it's brilliant. But if you encounter a side that are going to be up in your face, physical, aggressive, bring loads of emotion, and, you know, La Rochelle beat Bordeaux twice in their own 16. They beat Montpellier. They beat Racing. Did really well in their group stages as well. So probably not... going into the game, we all probably got it wrong to the point of saying that, look, I felt Leinster it was going to be very difficult And look, Rog, you can. It's for you as a coach. I met you before the game, and I just thought you were relaxed, and I was. It didn't surprise me, your self-belief and your confidence that your team would turn up, and that you obviously had a plan. I met Victor Vito before the game. He told me it was the best training week that he'd seen your team for ages, that they were buzzing. So when you get a plan and a structure and you do so much of it right, defensively, absolutely brilliant, stopping Munster from getting over the line. The one negative, if you lost the game, would have been the penalties, I thought. But I don't think Matt meant it in the way that you.
And to be fair, look, I do want to be fair to Matt as well. That's a quote now, a direct quote. So I'm not misrepresenting it, but there's obviously a bigger context to his chat as well. Come here, I wanted to ask you, Ronan. We've only a few minutes left with you, and we'll talk to QUINNY in a bit more detail about the URC semis. But the New Zealand tour, obviously upcoming. The couple of interprovincials that we've had recently and who's played themselves in and out, we'll come to that in a second, but the 10 conversation is ongoing and will be, obviously, and will only get hotter, I presume, obviously, in the lead into the World Cup. No sense, Ronan, that you'd leave Sexton at home for this and give the contenders to the crown a shot on the front line, is there?
No, because Johnny, I think, is too important to the Ireland team. The scenario isn't really improving, I suppose, in the bigger picture either, in the fact that it's 15 months now from a Rugby World Cup, where I suppose events in Munster or performances in Munster aren't helping Joey Carbery at all, and the fact that it's a team devoid of confidence and probably difficult to establish what way they're playing the game. And I think always in teams, and I was most definitely a beneficiary of this next comment, is I think when your team goes well, your 10 gets overappreciated, and when your team goes poorly, your 10 gets underappreciated. So that's most definitely the case, I think, for Joey Carbery. I think it's hard for him to find his own form in a team that's struggling for form, and he needs games, and a lot of quality games, because I think he definitely has the natural attributes to push Johnny for that position.
Is that nearly to say, Ronan, that like if he's in that Ireland team, for example, so if he went to New Zealand and you give him a test or a couple of tests, that we'll see the true potential of him?
Yeah, that's probably a bit broad, but I think in the fact that Johnny's a competitor, but Johnny's 37 in the summer. There's very little playing at that level of test rugby with the belts that go around for 80 minutes. So you need two. But the difference, I suppose, the drop off between Johnny and the others at the minute is quite large. And that can be, I think, reduced maybe with good training sessions, but also you need to be playing games and you need to make mistakes and you need to be getting minutes in the saddle. And that's how you become better as a number 10. And remember, you're probably around 30 is when you hit your peak as a 10. Would
you throw him in then against New Zealand, Carbery?
I think he'll definitely be involved. Yeah, I think that fascinates me too. And the fact now for, maybe because I'm involved so much in it, it's a 23-man game, Adrian. If people struggle with that, I think especially people of our generation, and the fact that the game has changed so much, it's a 23-man game. This thing is starting, but you need your playmakers, and especially at test level. Like obviously, kicking goals is so important too. So you need 2 10s, but I think we know that Johnny is proven and still at that level. Underneath that, there's question marks over a lot of them.
Now that we've annoyed you for the morning, we let you off. Best of luck at the weekend.
You didn't annoy me one bit. No, it was a good chat there. I enjoyed it. To be continued.
To be continued. As QUINNY said, he didn't get a word in edgeways, Rog. So by contract, obviously, we've got to give him a few minutes now.
Okay. See you.
Good man.
Cheers.
Thanks a million.
See you all.
We'll take on that point then, QUINNY, just about the players who might be on the plane, I suppose, for New Zealand. Have there been some players over the last few weeks that have almost, and I mean maybe particularly in the Munster, maybe a Munster tinted question, but have almost played themselves out?
It's been difficult. I think someone like Chris Farrell, who's played under Andy Farrell and Joe Schmidt and been really effective and it's been difficult for him getting ahead of Henshaw, Aki, Ringrose for a number of years. Now you have James Hume, I think, who's after really jumping into that picture. If Munster are winning and going into the knockout stages, I think Chris Farrell then is, you know, he still may go, but I just feel for him a little bit because even in the last couple of weeks against Leinster and against Ulster, I thought Chris Farrell, you know, he's still making those carries. He's getting across the game line. He's looking for people running off his shoulders. So I still think he should go, but it depends how many midfielders they bring, but it could be difficult for him. I thought Alex Kendellen put himself in the picture probably with the performance against Toulouse, but then again, you know, difficult in those last two games. Even though he's making lots of tackles and he's all over the field, I think it's an incredible rise for him given he's in the academy and where he's come from. The other players from Munster, look, I think Conor Murray, Keith Earls, Tyg Byrne, you know, Craig Casey, I think they'll all be in the mix. I don't think they'll be punished for probably a poor season for Munster, you know, the way Munster finished off the season. But I was hoping for Thomas Ahern to get a good run of games, you know, at the second half of the season and really kind of step up, because I still believe he's a player who can play international rugby. He hasn't got injured in that game in Ulster. So it's not easy when your team are not losing, because it's about perception. It's being in the limelight. But there's not many more who put their hands up and kind of put themselves in the picture. So that's probably difficult for them.
You're a big fan of Jimmy O'Brien?
Yeah, I am. I think the way he's played for Leinster this season has been phenomenal. You know, I would have been very pro him being nominated in the first batch of European players after the pool games. We had to nominate 15 players to go forward to the knockout stages, and Jimmy O'Brien was in that group. You know, the way he played in those pool games, the games against Bath, was it 4 tries over in Bath? I just think he's composure, control. He's very physical. Similarities to Hugo Quinlan, doesn't make a mistake, seems to be a very intelligent rugby player, and I just think he's grown so much. He's got to go to New Zealand, I think, and I just think he's been absolutely brilliant. It's great to see Jordan Larmour as well come back and show his class in the last couple of weeks. He's had 2 tough injuries again this year, and you know, last weekend against Glasgow he was just sensational. It was like a reminder that he hasn't gone away, and this is what he can do out of nothing. For Leinster, the other ones, then Joe McCarthy, I think, again, he's someone who'll go on the plane, and for such a young player, very, very physical. Ross Maloney, I think, obviously the way he's played for Leinster as well. So Frawley, I think he's someone who again, so there's a number of Leinster guys, but obviously they're getting to European final, and you'd imagine that they'll get over the Bulls tonight, get into a final and probably win it. That's what we expect. You never know. Obviously, tonight is going to be a physical test for them, but I just think the way some of those players have played, and it's easier when you're on the front foot. Same for Ulster. You know, Timoney has put himself back into the picture big time. And, you know, we spoke last week, James Hume was never going to be, he's not a bolter, because, you know, I think he was touted last November, or the season he's had with Ulster, he's been absolutely brilliant.
You mentioned Ulster, so Stormers obviously in the semi-finals. Is there an element almost that beating Munster is a success for them already, Quinny, to have reached this stage, almost regardless, or is that too simplistic?
It depends what happens. It's very difficult for them. So if they lose against the Stormers in a tight game, obviously Dan McFarland will be very disappointed. But you know, they've got near the end, if you like. It would be still very disappointed. But if they got walloped in South Africa and had a really poor performance, well, then it doesn't really count for anything. I think Ulster's biggest problem over the years has been consistency, and they've shown with sporadic, brilliant performances at times, what they can do when they get confident. Their self-belief is up when they execute well. They can be brilliant and be a handful for anyone. The win in Toulouse was incredible, but then they come back to Dublin or back to Belfast and take a bit of mismanagement, poor defence, you know. So that's what Ulster, unfortunately, have done for the last number of seasons. So I still think they're capable of going to the Stormers. Like, the Stormers are finished second in the table they actually lost the least amount of games, 4 games. And you think those 4 games were probably at the start, they were at the start of the tournament when they didn't have their internationals. So they've 2 draws in there. Leinster finished top. So it's a very difficult one. You know, they have the likes of Kitsov, Malherbe, Herschel Yanches, Gallant, a lot of really top class players, but I just don't know if they can play the pace and tempo that Leinster will bring. We'll see. For Ulster, what Ulster will bring. For Ulster, it's about bringing a physicality, particularly up front, and taking their opportunities. Conditions will be perfect. And I think if they get flow into their game, well, they're confident. Yoon, Balakoon, McCluskey, they can be devastating, as they showed last week.
Are you calling Leinster and Ulster, or how are you seeing it?
Well, I'm calling Leinster, I think. Look, Leinster beat the Bulls 31-3 at the start of the season. It's going to be a bit tighter than that. Marcel Coetzee was talking about that tempo and pace. So you're talking about Rodgers' plan. Can Jake White bring a plan to the RDS and stop Leinster and stop their flow? I think they'll bring a lot of energy early on, but I don't know if they'll be able to sustain it. So I think Leinster will win that one. I fancy Ulster a little bit. Definitely, I think they have a great opportunity, but it's hard to go to South Africa and win a game like this. I think the South African teams have brought a lot of quality to the competition. So look, it's probably going to be Leinster Stormers.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Jake White, after a smack talk about Connacht during the year, Quinny, we're all fired up about it. Nothing that riles us all up more than a bit of smack talk about Connacht. Good man. Thanks a million. Catch up with you early next week. Thanks for that, Alan Quinlan.
Adrian.
On the line there, Ronan O'Gara before that. That's our rugby coverage for this morning. And as I said, we'll pick it up again next week, post those semis, and get Quinny's thoughts on that come Monday morning.